Howdy, me, Brother Daymond, Daymond Chief Jones, your humble correspondent, not to be confused with your horrible correspondent. Well, it's a beautiful day where I am, and for my own safety and that of my family, I don't never say exactly where I am. Y'all know that I stay between Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and Texas. Those are my four primary states I stay in, as in traveling back and forth. So it's just a safety thing. People I know personally, people that I have a relationship with, they know where I am, and they know how to contact me. For the rest of you, you can contact me at Daymond, Daymond 4040 at yahoo.com. That's my PayPal account. That's the account I use for people to donate to the church as well. So you can use that either way if you feel inclined to do so. Or help me get a new smartphone where I can keep getting this stuff out, because a lot of times I just can't get it out for various reasons other than with this smartphone. Anyway, today's section is law on the law. Now, in my about, it always says I'm trying to let you know that I am not an esquire, not an attorney at law. I'm not a bar card lawyer. I'm not a bar card judge. I'm not any of that. I'm only a common law lawyer in the common law, as a man at my own law, and I am a judge that God has called me to be in the church. I'm a minister, I'm a pastor, I'm a king, I'm a high priest, okay? But, you know, I'm trying to separate the lawful from the legal. All that legal stuff's in statutes. The law is in the law itself, okay? And statutes aren't law. We know that. Anyway, I've had two specific men that I've helped, one of them for probably 3 weeks or a month, and the other one probably for 6 months, try and discover things in the law. And they would read the law, and they would send a law to me and say, I think it means this. What's your opinion? I say, well, you know, my opinion is just that, it's an opinion. But I base it on known facts, and I explain. So if they say, well, when it says shall, what does that mean? I say, well, it's always been taught to me for almost 40 years now, that means mandatory, absolutely. But it's a future tense word, which means in the future. You shall do it tomorrow, or you shall do it. It doesn't always say when, it just says shall is future tense. Well, shall is tomorrow, but when tomorrow arrives, shall is also the next day, and the next day, and the next day. I'm trying to think of this guy's name that's got a YouTube video channel, and I think he's got a .com also, and I've listened to a lot of what he says, and he makes dang good sense. I haven't talked to him personally. I know other people that have, and I know people that subscribe to him and his teachings, and I have no argument with the man. If I think of his name, I put it in the comments today or tomorrow or whenever. But anyway, when he goes to court and he basically has the judge or the prosecutor, whatever, he said, read off the alleged allegation against me. And he says, no driver's license. He said, okay. He says, read the actual law to me, which is actually the statute. But he says, go ahead and read it out loud in court. It says, you shall. He said, stop. Okay, Your Honor. He's already said it says shall. That means like future tense. You know what I'm saying? Future tense is tomorrow, the day after, whenever. It's not now. So it's mandatory, but it's in the future. So I shall get a license, but right now you have no valid, lawful claim against me because it says shall. you're talking about the future. Okay, so we're not talking about right now. So I shall get a license. So you go ahead and dismiss this and move on, because he's already said shall. So if that's in the law, that does away with me. Okay, so there was a new interpretation that come on me 6 months or a year ago about it being future tense. Well, how could 38 and a half years, almost 39 years, I be taught and trained it's exactly this? And then earlier videos I told y'all that judges in the last 2 to 5 years, they've said shall means optional. It's never meant optional. But some courts are interpreted as shall means optional. You can or cannot. Now, I'm going to say that that's probably less than 10% of the courts in various jurisdictions, so that is not the norm, but you could run into that, so you need to know about that and prepare and plan for that. Okay, another man and I just today had a discussion over some court rules and regulations where it's got rule number so-and-so. Well, in that, it says you got to do ding, 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 ding. Unless, ding, 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 ding. So this law is saying this is the law, but it's saying it's got all these exceptions. So this law may or may not apply. So you got to go through every ding. Is it private? Is it part of a strategy? Is it to rebuke, refute, or to bring perjury charges, or used to help bring perjury charges against the other, or to rebut other testimony? Okay, so in essence, it's saying strictly, totally, if these things apply, then this goes poop, it disappears. So if any of these exceptions appear, in other words, it could say, for example, I'm just making up something stupid here, just for principles. I don't know no such law, no such statute, but just say it says, if a man or woman, which they don't never say a man or woman, they always say a person. And we went over that in the past, but that's a corporation. That's not a living, breathing, flesh and blood man or woman, okay? But let's just say it says any man or woman that is standing 500 foot away from a church cannot possess in their hand, have close enough that they can reach out and grab it, any alcoholic beverage or any tobacco if you're 500 foot of a school or a church. Okay? Then you get on the other side, so you get on the other side, and then it says except unless it's on your own abode, your own home, your own business, your property, land that you control or you manage. If you're on this, then it does not apply to you. Okay? So even though it said all this stuff here, if it's on your own private property, your own land, your own home, it does not apply. Okay? Or anything you control or have specific access to. So let's just say you're standing in somebody's front yard and you have a pack of cigarettes, and say they have this law, and say the man that you believe owns this land says, is it okay for me to be here? And he says yes. So then you have access to it. Okay, and this law gives an exception to access. So but then they arrest you, and then you can find this man, you point him out and say, this man told me could. Well, the point is, he's the next door neighbor. Actually, he don't have access or authority or control over this land. He simply takes their trash out for them as a courtesy, and he's done it for 20 years. He takes out their garbage so the cats and stuff don't get into it, because they leave in the middle of the night for work. Maybe he's a milkman or whatever, and he leaves at 2 in the morning for work. So he takes his garbage out at 6 in the morning so the cats and dogs and stuff don't tear it up. So here you go. He believed he had authority to be there. So he had no mens rea, no criminal intent of mind. He knew about this law, and he specifically asked the man, could he be there? And he said yes. So he believed he didn't qualify the man, but he believed reasonably logically, if the man's here, the man's taking out the garbage, who would think somebody's taking out somebody else's garbage? So he had plausible belief. It's plausible to believe, and you should believe that this man believed this. So when you read a law over here, then below it, but actually equal to it on the other side, is everything that eats this, like Pac-Man, okay? So no matter how short or how long this is, if any of these things apply, this here disappears. It does a Houdini on you. Poof, it's gone, okay? So it doesn't exist. Now, unfortunately, a lot of policemen, they read this and new laws come out. And maybe their agency doesn't explain it to them, or doesn't do an in-depth, or maybe they give them a 2 or 3 paragraph about this new law come out and exceptions, but it just basically tells them it's there and what it is. It may give them, quote, a little guideline, but cops aren't attorneys. They're not judges, but they're enforcing these laws as though they understand them in the realm of an attorney or a court. To enforce the law, you must understand the law. You must understand the intent of the law. You must understand the history of the law. You must understand all the exceptions. You must look at them in a reasonable and logical way and look at what the statute says to it, okay? So you may have a statute somewhere else that says a statute that deprives people of these specific rights is null and void, and that's the intent of the legislature. So when you do this here, you say, well, this is a personal right. So forget all this stuff that does away with it. This is void when it was made, because there's a statute that's superior and older to this that says this doesn't apply at all. So when you look at the law, a lot of people look like this here, and they look at something this wide, about this long, it says all this stuff. But that's only part of the book. That's like somebody picking out a specific verse or chapter in the Bible, and they live on that. You got to start at Genesis 1:1 and go to the end of Revelation. Not revelations, like some people say, but revelation. It was a revelation, okay? So you got to start at the beginning. You got to go to the end. You got to read from the top left across to the right and down and down and down. Then you got that paragraph. You got to break that paragraph down. Don't eat the whole piece of meat in one whack. Take a little piece at a time. Read it. Think about, what do these words mean? Does it say included or exclusive? Is it part of included, or is it exclusive, meaning it's outside of it? Does it say withstanding or notwithstanding, to include or not include? And you got to see what it says before it and after it. So yes, you need to look at the small print, but then you need to put it in the really large print, in the bigger picture. This is a tiny piece up here. You got to see, how does it fit in the overall scheme? Okay? Then you got to find out, does that law apply to me, this man? Does it apply to me? Meaning not just me, but does it apply to all men and women in this state or in these 50 states united union? Does it apply to us? Does it not apply to us? Okay? If it don't apply to you, then it don't apply to you. But you need to make very, very certain that it doesn't apply before you say it doesn't apply. Read it, think about it, go to bed, sleep on it, get up and look at it the next day. Do it several times. Ask another man about this same law. If you got a problem, ask somebody else. I got a problem with this law and I don't think it applies to me, but it might apply to me, or it might partially apply to me. Do you know what these words mean or what they might mean as far as within this particular statute that's a reflection of the true law? And did they or are they acting in color of the law? Are they acting within their circle of specific direct authority? Have they stepped outside of that and lost all their sovereign immunity? You got to figure these things out so you know how to proceed. So that, say, if you say it don't apply to you and you're engaged in whatever this activity or act or behavior is, or sharing your thoughts or opinions with others, then somebody says, oh, well, you broke some law here. Okay, well, great. That doesn't apply to me. But you've got to be able to reasonably, articulately explain, if you can, to the cop on the scene how that doesn't apply to you. If somebody goes and gets an attorney and gets the attorney to go to the state's attorney, district attorney, city attorney, county attorney, and get a warrant issued on you for something, then you got to be able to defend yourself. If it's the cop, you got to be able to explain it reasonably. Okay? And then if it goes to court, then you got your abatement. So you can plead guilty, innocent, or abatement. The judge has no authority to enter a plea on your behalf. He doesn't have that authority. If he does that, he's doing wrong. Okay, so the judge said, well, if you're not going to enter a plea, I'm going to enter a plea of innocent. You can I object. I do not authorize you to enter no plea on my behalf, and I'm not entering one at this time. Okay, if he goes on, he's in usury. Look it up, study it, okay? But I'd say 90% of the judges do that routinely, okay? But until me, you, and everybody else stands up and say that, and I know a lot of people that have, and they've won their cases over that, or their cases are in limbo, and their cases have been limbo for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, because they haven't put in an objection to the judge doing this. In other words, they haven't told the judge, I object to this. I'm not doing it and I object to it. And the judge says, well, when will you be ready to make a plea? I shall let you know. Okay, that's future tense. This means it's never going to come. So they can't move forward. And the courts are hesitant to hassle and harass people in this type of situation because it's unique and it's like the 1%ers. 3%ers at most, but I'm going to go with 1%, maybe less than 1%. Okay? Think about 300 to 350 million people in this country. They don't have no real accurate discernment of who's here. Okay? And from one day to the next, the population could go down several thousand or go up several thousand, depends on who's coming across the border. Okay, we're counting people here. You didn't say legal or illegal, just the people that's physically within the boundaries, okay? And you know, if you're counting American territories, or you're just counting the 50 states. So things happen. How many people is outside of the country in the military or other projects around the world? How many people are here on visas or touring? So the number of citizens vary. So I'm of the belief, I seen something the other day that said the government estimates there's 313 million. I think the government always messes up on estimation. I truly believe there's 350 million people here, and I think we're probably in the 30 million illegal criminal aliens. And people say, well, what about deporting the criminal aliens? Okay, any man or woman that crosses our border without our permission and our authority and our approval is an international criminal trespasser the second they pass that boundary into our sovereignty. They become a criminal that moment. Okay, so that is the crime they committed. So deport. Okay, I am for lawful authorized immigration, where a man or a woman or a family comes and they go through the paperwork and we vet them and make sure that they're safe, they're okay, and we let a certain number of people in from various countries around the world. We don't just let 500,000 or 1,000,000 people in from Mexico or from Canada or from Chile or Yugoslavia, Honduras, Russia, or wherever else. You only let a certain number of people in from the entire world. You let a portion of these people and a portion of these people, a portion of these people, and some people are political refugees. You let in a certain number, and you keep the number realistic, okay? Remember, people like me or other Americans that have talents and abilities, we get knocked out of work because we might say go for $25 an hour, and they got this illegal alien they can pay $5 or $10 an hour to do whatever they do. So they're saying, I'm going to get the same production out of this guy for $15 less an hour times 10 or 20 or 30 employees. So they're going to hire the illegal guy. So it knocks a lot of people out of work that do work, labor in the field, as it were, and yada yada yada. So the long and short of it is, it's just bad. Anyway, that's what I want to tell you about the law. Study it. Look at words and definitions. And remember, the word United States has over 400 meanings. So when it says state of mind, you got to look up meanings. And it got a lot. So when a court says blah, 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 you got to say, which meaning are you talking about? It's a dozen different meanings for this word. Okay, love you, God bless you, and y'all have a super great Jesus day. And support me with gifts at PayPal if you can. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.